We saw something impossible. Okay, that's the opening line of the text we're breaking down today. And, usually when I read a sentence like that, my first thought is, okay, here we go again.
Right.
It sounds like, I don't know, the start of some conspiracy video or sci-fi novel.
Right.
But the source material for this deep dive, The Architects of the Impossible, insists it's talking about cold, hard history.
It is a very dramatic opening, I'll give it that. But the thing is, in this case, the drama is actually warranted by the data. We're not talking about Atlantis or, aliens here. We're looking at a specific archaeological reality that just refuses to fit into the timeline we all learned in school.
Right, and that's the hook, isn't it? We're talking about a structure, this massive complex of stone pillars that exists in a time period where, theoretically, humans should have been worrying about, well, nothing but their next meal.
Exactly.
The text calls it the impossible object. But before we get into the philosophy of it, let's ground this for everyone.
Yeah.
What exactly are we looking at? Because the text gets pretty poetic, but I want the visual.
Okay, so picture this. You're standing on a ridge in what is now Turkey, and digging out of the ground are these massive T-shaped limestone pillars.
Okay.
Some of them are 16 feet tall, weighing up to 10, maybe even 20 tons. And they aren't rough stones, like, say, Stonehenge. These are beautifully smooth, they're fitted into circles, and they're carved with these incredible high-relief sculptures.
Sculptures of what?
We're talking scorpions, vultures, lions, intricate geometric patterns. It's an art gallery in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, so big stones with pictures.
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive, sure. But we have the pyramids, we have the Colosseum. Why does the text call this specific site impossible?
Because of when it was built. This is where the math just completely breaks the model.
Right.
The text cites radiocarbon dating of the organic material found in the walls, and we're looking at roughly 9600 BCE.
9600 BCE. Okay, let's really put that in context for everyone listening.
I mean, to put that in perspective, that is 6,000 years older than Stonehenge.
6,000?
Yeah. It is 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is firmly in the Stone Age.
And the people who built this...
They didn't have metal tools. They didn't have the wheel. They didn't even have pottery yet.
And here's the kicker. According to the standard history books, they didn't have farming.
Exactly. And that is the timeline paradox the source really zeroes in on. We're all familiar with the standard model of civilization, right? Neolithic Revolution.
Oh, yeah. Gordon Childe in the 30s. It's the story we all know.
It's the story we all know. The logic is linear. First, humans are hunter-gatherers, moving around in these little bands just to survive. Then we invent agriculture. We domesticate wheat.
Right. And once you have a farm, you have to stay put to watch the crops. So you build a house.
Then a village. Then you get a surplus of food, so not everyone has to work in the fields anymore. Some people can become priests or artisans or builders.
And then, and only then, do you build the big stuff, the
Oh.
temples and monuments.
Yes. Farming comes first.
Yeah.
Religion and grand architecture, they come second.
That's the aha moment the text is pushing for. It says this structure is older than civilization, older than farming. It's basically saying these people built the cathedral before they built the city, which just seems completely backward.
It reverses the causal link. The evidence at the site, it shows no sign of domestic wheat or big settlements from that earliest phase.
So what does it suggest?
It suggests that people came together first, maybe for a ritual, maybe for this impossible project, and the need to feed all those workers is what actually sparked the invention of farming. The temple built the city, not the other way around.
That is a massive shift in how we view human progress. But the text, it goes even further. It drops this line that really stuck with me.
I think I know the one you mean.
It says the structure is older than survival itself. Now, I have to push back on that a bit. Humans have always been trying to survive. Is the author just being poetic there?
It's a provocative phrase for sure, but I think it's getting at the surplus argument. In a strict hunter-gatherer society, you spend almost all your caloric energy just staying alive.
Right. You hunt, you gather, you eat, you sleep. You just don't have the budget, energetically speaking, to carve 20-ton stones and then drag them up a hill.
Yeah, if you're chasing a gazelle for 3 days, you're probably not spending the next month standing down a limestone pillar.
Exactly. So when the text says older than survival, I think it implies these people broke out of that caloric trap somehow. They created a society where survival wasn't the only operating mode. They had excess energy, excess focus, and excess time. They prioritized this act of creation over the immediate efficiency of survival.
Which brings us to the logistics. This is the part that always bugs me with these ancient mystery stories. They say, oh, it was spiritual. But I'm thinking like a project manager here. To move a 10-ton block, you need, what, 50 men? 500?
Probably closer to 500 if you're dragging it uphill without wheels or anything.
Okay, 500 people. Plus their families, maybe. That's 1,000 mouths to feed in a world with no supermarkets, no grain silos. How do you organize that? Usually you need a king to force them or a city to sustain them. And that is the second huge claim the source makes about these architects. It says they came together without kings, without cities.
See, that's where I get skeptical. Without kings, it sounds nice and, democratic, but large-scale construction needs management. Someone has to say, pull now. Someone has to say, carve the lion here, not there.
Of course.
If there's no king, no pharaoh, how does the work get done?
And that's the central mystery the text really dives into. In later civilizations like Egypt or Mesopotamia, we see clear evidence of hierarchy. We find the big palaces for the rulers and the little huts for the workers. We find administrative tablets listing out rations.
But not here.
At this site, we don't find that. There's no palace layer, it just isn't there.
So it's a flat hierarchy.
The archaeological record seems to suggest it. It looks like a communal effort, different groups coming together, maybe seasonally contributing to this one massive project and then, I don't know, dispersing. It really challenges our assumption that you need a dictator to build something big.
It's the ant colony theory versus the army theory. An army has a general. An ant colony just knows what to do. But humans aren't ants. We argue. We slack off.
We want extra rations.
Exactly.
Which leads us to the third condition the text mentions. And this is the one that moves from sociology to, well, psychology. It says they operated without fear.
Without fear. I underline that 3 times. Because, again, it sounds romantic, but fear is a pretty useful tool for getting things done.
Right.
I show up to work because I fear getting fired.
Right.
And Egyptians built the pyramids because they feared the pharaoh or they feared the chaos of the gods if they didn't.
Precisely. Fear is the glue of the state. Fear of punishment, fear of starvation, fear of the other. The text argues that because there was no state, no police, no standing army, no monopoly on violence, fear couldn't have been the primary motivator.
So?
Well, you can't really force a hunter-gatherer to drag a stone. They have weapons and they know the land. If you try to whip them, they'll just leave. They can walk away into the forest.
That's a really good point. You can't coerce someone who is completely self-sufficient. If I can hunt and find my own dinner, you can't threaten to starve me.
You can't. So if you can't force them and you can't pay them because money hasn't been invented yet, why are they there? Why are they breaking their backs moving limestone?
It has to be belief, right? It has to be something internal.
It has to be. But not just belief in some vague sense. It implies a level of social cohesion and shared purpose that is completely alien to us. The text calls it a technology of the mind. They weren't building out of fear of a king. They were building out of a shared desire to manifest something incredible.
And that leads right into this next section, the one, the alien human. The source states it so bluntly. They were not like us. And it clarifies it's not talking about biology. They were Homo sapiens. Same brains, same hands.
Right. If you took a baby from that time and raised them in New York today, they'd be indistinguishable from anyone else. They'd play video games and complain about the subway.
So the difference isn't hardware.
It's software. It's the operating system.
The operating system. I like that.
The text says they live differently and they believe differently. Think about the mental load of a modern human. It's largely defined by hierarchy and transaction. What is my status? What do I own? Who controls me?
Am I winning?
Right. Am I winning? The text suggests that these architects were running an operating system where those questions hadn't really been installed yet. This is what the source calls the pre-fear mindset.
A pre-fear mindset.
Imagine a human consciousness that isn't fragmented by the anxiety of status or the threat of state violence.
It's hard to even imagine. It's like trying to picture a new color. A society organizing massive labor through what? Joy, duty, awe.
Awe is probably the closest word we have for it. But this brings up the most uncomfortable part of the source material, the mirror section.
Oh, yeah.
The text says, once we understand them, everything about modern life feels wrong.
Let's unpack that wrongness.
Yeah.
Because, I like modern life. I like penicillin. I like the internet. I definitely like not being eaten by a leopard. Why does looking at some old stones make my life feel wrong?
It's not about the technology. The text is clear on that. It's about the trade-off. We accept this narrative that history is an upward slope of progress. We were primitive, and now we are advanced.
Of course.
But this site suggests that the so-called primitive people had a capacity for voluntary cooperation and artistic grandeur that we seem to have lost. We traded that freedom for security.
So the idea that civilization is a kind of cage we built for ourselves.
In a way, yeah. Think about the kings and cities we mentioned. We rely on them. Most of us can't survive without the supply chain, the police force, the government. We're dependent. The architects were independent. They chose to build. We have to build to maintain the system.
Wow.
The text argues that our reliance on hierarchy is actually a kind of regression. We got weaker, so we needed stronger chains.
That's heavy. It flips the whole script. We aren't the masters of the universe. We're the domesticated pets of the system we created.
And that creates a dissonance, right? You look at the structure older than farming, older than the wheel, and you realize these weren't cavemen grunting in the dark. They were sophisticated, organized, and arguably more free than we are. It makes our modern stressors feel, well, artificial.
It makes my homeowners association feel very, very silly, that's for sure.
It definitely puts the HOA in perspective.
But this brings us to the end of the source material. And the outro is, well, it's weird. It doesn't give you a nice, neat wrap-up. It warns us. It says, this part does not add knowledge. It takes something away.
This is my favorite concept in the whole text. The idea of subtraction as a learning tool.
Right. Usually we do a deep dive to get smarter. We want to add facts to the library. Now I know the date, 9600 BCE. Now I know the name. But the source is saying, no, we're deleting something from your hard drive. What is being deleted?
Our certainty. Specifically our certainty about the human narrative. We have this deep-seated belief that human history is a story of scarcity to abundance or simplicity to complexity. We believe that before the city there was just chaos and survival.
Right, the Hobbesian life.
Yeah.
Nasty, brutish, and short.
Exactly. But this site subtracts that certainty. It takes away the belief that civilization defined by walls and police and taxes is the only way to do big things. It strips away the arrogance that we are the finished product of history.
It's humbling. It's like realizing your parents had this whole cool life before you were born that you know nothing about. We look back at these ancestors and just assume they were waiting for us to show up and invent the iPhone.
But they were busy doing their own impossible things.
And doing them without the tools we think are essential. That's the real subtraction, isn't it? It takes away our excuses. We look at our world climate change, conflict, inequality, and we say, well, it's complicated. We need more resources. We need better leaders. These people had no resources and no leaders, and they built a mountain of art.
So it subtracts our ability to say, it can't be done?
Yes.
Yeah.
It just leaves you standing in that open space.
Yeah.
The text ends with the line, we will never see ourselves the same way.
And you really don't.
It lingers, doesn't it?
Okay.
I've been thinking about it all week. It's haunting. You walk down the street, you see the skyscrapers, the traffic lights, the whole machine of the city, and you realize it's all just one way of doing things. It's not the only way.
And maybe not even the best way?
So we've broken the timeline. We've debunked the idea that farming has to come before temples. We've looked at a society that organized without fear, without kings, and we've had our sense of superiority stripped away.
Not a bad day's work for a deep dive.
Right. But I don't want to end on just the philosophy. I want to leave the listener with the challenge that the source implies. We talked about how these architects were stripped of everything we rely on, no state, no safety net, and yet they built this impossible thing.
Right.
So here's the question for you listening right now. If we took it all away, if we subtracted your job title, your boss, your city, your fear of paying the rent, if you were just a human standing on a hill in the silence, what would you be capable of building?
That is the ultimate question.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.